everyone. Welcome to Take 5 on this Thursday. The week is coming toward an end. How's it going? I've enjoyed doing a bit of discussing and talking about the book of James just for 5 minutes a day, and I hope they're relevant to your life. We're in a section right now in James 4 where he talks about friendship with God and that it can only come through a spirit of humility. If you're proud, you and God are not in the same room. But if there's humility, just like Christ is the example of humility, the eternal Son of God in all of glory, humbled himself and became human, and he's our example. And one writer put it that the primary characteristic of a Christ follower ought to be humility. This was an 18th century writer, and he says, I don't see it much in the church back in the 18th century. I'm so glad we see it everywhere today. Tongue in cheek. Humility. Friendship with God starts with humility. That's what this whole section is. And then, if you remember, he's got these weighing of two words. We looked a couple days ago where he says, submit to God, resist the devil. Then he says, cleanse your hands, purify your heart. This time, the two are, he's very prophetic. He's looking at the difficult days we're living in, and you're going to hear these words, and they're going to sound sour. Well, here they are. Listen, he sounds like an Old Testament prophet that's railing against the people. Here's what he says. James 4, verse 9, and this is all has to do with humility and friendship with God. But listen to what he says. The two are, be wretched and mourn and weep. This side. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. This side. Wow. I mean, what a downer that is. Be wretched and mourn and weep. I read that and say, you first. And you got to think, well, what's he talking about? He's talking about the appropriate response in difficult days. In other words, don't be frivolous. Don't be unwise and just be a one who cracks jokes when times are tough. It made me think of a passage in the book of Ecclesiastes regarding the appropriate response, especially in difficult times. I'm reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 7. Listen to these words. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. In other words, the living, those who understand life, realize that at times there is a negative key to life. And if life is always laughter, it can be so superficial. He goes on, verse 3, sorrow is better than laughter. For by sadness of face, the heart is made glad. He's talking about authenticity. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. It is better for a man to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear the song of fools. He's basically saying a realistic look at life. I don't think he's saying it should always be in the minor key or that things should always be negative. But he's saying we got to be realistic about the difficulties of life and not try to joke our way through them. Here's how he ends verse 14 of Ecclesiastes 7. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. And in the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other. In the day of prosperity, be joyful. If the Browns win their game tonight, celebrate. And in the day of adversity, tonight might be that, consider. That's where James is. Be wretched, mourn, and weep. Be appropriate in the negative days in which we live. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. Appreciate the days in which we live and don't superficially ride through them. Consider them. That was Ecclesiastes' words. And then he ends this section the way he started. Humble yourself before the Lord. Humble yourself before the Lord. And then he says, and he will exalt you. Don't let your pride, don't let your frivolity exalt you. Let the Lord exalt you. And you do it through humility. That was a tough section. Think about that. In the days of joy, celebrate. In the days of adversity, don't ignore them. I'm quoting Solomon again. Consider that. Consider that on this Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow when we do another Take 5. So long for now.